Cinema has the power to evoke emotions, gives inspiration, open up new worlds. Together with cinematographers, Sony has continued to develop digital cinematography. It all started with F900 in 1999. Since then, there have been so many advances based on feedback from the cinema production field. Then, VENICE opens up full-frame digital cinematography in 2017. Its phenomenal color science and creative versatility have been well received. And the evolution of VENICE continues.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. We are so happy to be here, back at Camerimage, back in Toruń, back together with you, be talking to you, having a conversation with you, getting your feedback, which is so important for us after such a long, difficult time. So obviously, today is about CineAlta. Sony has been working for decades with the creative community. We have been able to support you, to provide you with tools that are created together with cinematographers for cinematographers. Our goal is to let you bring your visions to life, to create emotions in every frame. We are proud of our flagship Venice that has been used in numerous productions, and that is the camera of choice for productions such as Two of Us, The Father, Antlers, Sex Education, The Crown, Black Widow, and the upcoming Top Gun 2 and Avatar. We are very happy that many Sony cameras are used in this camera image this year. Just to name two, Germinal by DOP Xavier Doleon and Parallel Mothers by Almodovar with DOP José Luis Alcaine. So 20 years of CineAlta. We are keeping listening to you, talking to you, being a reliable partner. And we want to take this to the next chapter. And for this, let me welcome on stage Sebastian Leske, Product Manager for Cinematography at Sony Europe.
So, yes, hello and also a warm welcome from my side. As Klaus said, it's so good to be back at Camerimage. I think every one of us loves to be here, watch amazing movies, documentaries, music videos, and yeah, you cannot believe it's so good to be here. And as he said, for us it have been amazing years. So with the Venice, it's so popular. So in all the different productions, we can see the Venice is coming. You give us feedback just to evolve even more. And this is what we want to do today. So today, we are so proud to officially announce the evolution in our Sony Venice family. We are going to announce the Venice 2. And before going into the details, let me show it to you. So I'm right-handed, so even with the left hand, it's so small, lightweight, it's amazing. So as said, When we introduced the Venice 2017, we gave you the promise that we are listening very, very carefully to all your needs. So not only if you're a cinematographer, if you're an AC, a DIT, if you're a colorist, or even if you work in a rental house, because all of you have different needs for tools on set and being used. So this promise will continue, will ever stay alive. So the Venice 2, as you have seen, is a really small model. It's in addition to our Venice, it's a new flagship model, and what it will be is it comes with a complete, newly developed full-frame sensor. So this is where we say we don't want to limit your creativity, and that's the reason why we are going to use full-frame sensors in our cameras. Because with the Venice, it was the same. You can use whatever lens you want with the Venice, and it's the same promise for the Venice 2. However, we also know you love the dual base ISO functionality on the Venice, and this, of course, also the Venice 2 brings. So no matter if you are shooting daylight or if you are in night mode and you need to have really sensitive sensors, the Venice can do. And here, for the new full frame, we are able to raise up the dual base sensitivity. As you have seen, it's really lightweight. So and this is thanks to internal recording. So the Venice 2 is the first camera which is able to shoot either internal XOCN or 4K ProRes, and this makes the camera so versatile and so flexible for Steadicam, drone, for small and tiny rooms, and with all the creative choices you want to use. And of course, it also comes with the internal ND filters. So when we introduced the Venice in 2017, we introduced the first time the 8-step ND filter, and everyone who have shot on the Venice so far said, this is groundbreaking, this is genius, because it makes life on set just quicker. You don't need to change in the matty boxes out in front of the lens the ND filter. Just within a second, you can adapt the ND filter and you can take the shot you need. So also the Venice 2 is coming with these 8-step ND filter system, and these are just the big ones. As said, we listen carefully to DITs, to ACs, and so on, also for the development of Venice 2. So there's much more the Venice 2 will bring based on this feedback. So if it's increase or improvement of the lookup table support, if it's false color output, we have also taken a look into the user operability of the menu structure in cooperation with the camera assistants to make it even easier as the current Venice, just for you to give you the best tools for your productions. But as said, one of the essential things for Venice 2 is the sensor, because this is what ends at the end on the screen. So let's take a little bit on a look on the Venice sensor on the new one. As said, it's a full-frame sensor because we want to give you the creative choice. We want to give you the extra shallow depth of field, the super wide shot possibilities. And for this one, we completely designed a new sensor, and as you can see, we have been able to increase the latitude to give you more dynamic range also for the shots you need, and we have been able to increase the dual base ISO values up to 3200, so it's really taking care of the shadows on the low light capabilities, and you will see later on in the demo reels which we have produced how clean the images are, even in the lowlights. But it's not only about the lowlights, it's also about the highlights, the roll-off in the highlights. This is also where we took another care and put this into the new sensor. And as you have seen, it's a high-resolution sensor, so if you're doing VFX, if you're doing virtual production LED backplates, you will benefit from this new full-frame sensor. Or, we know, Super 35, there is so many glass in the rentals on the market, and if you shoot Super 35, you will then be benefit for amazing oversampling quality, for amazing 4K ProRes if you want to shoot this. But highlights and lowlights is one thing, but it's also about the colors. So the skin tones, all the other colors which are in the nature, in the scene you want to capture and you want to reproduce so naturally. And of course, this was also groundbreaking at the Venice, and we will continue with this with the Venice 2. And of course, perhaps you want to mix them both. This is possible. despite it's a new sensor, we take particular care that you are able to shoot your production in the future with the Venice 2 and the new sensor and the original Venice with the current sensor and have amazing pictures at the end on the big screen or wherever you want to produce for. The most obvious, and you have seen it while I was holding high the Venice 2, it's the internal recording. So we got this as a feedback from the Venice to really keep it small, flexible, more lightweight. And with the Venice 2, you have now the possibility to shoot internal 16-bit XOCN. So whenever you had a Venice production and you shot on the 16-bit XOCN, I think your colorist said, this is amazing what I have and what I can use with this and how I can color grade the content coming from the original Venice. And this is now also taken into the body of the Venice 2. And as you can see, we are using 2 card slots. So that means even if you are shooting documentaries, for example, and you need to have relay recording going from one card to the next, or you have the need for cache recording, this of course is possible, and it's even extended compared to the original Venice. So at the end, it's all about the lenses on top as well. So when in 2017, there have been a lot of full-frame lenses released, and just during the last couple of weeks, I think everyone have seen the news from different lens manufacturers releasing new lenses. And Venice is the most flexible tool and most flexible camera for adapting lenses for your production. So no matter full-frame anamorphic, full-frame spherical, Super 35 anamorphic spherical, or if you take out or take off the PL mount of the Venice and Venice 2, you know there is an E mount underneath. So this opens up even wider flexibility because we don't want to limit the lenses of your choice going with the camera you want to shoot as well. So this is lens agnostic, and you will see in the 2 reels how different this will be and how amazing content you are able to shoot. But this is not everything. So when we introduced the Venice, we have been able to take out the sensor block. It was the first time in the camera able to take out the sensor block. And perhaps you have already used the Rialto system, so the extension system of the original Venice, in order to go into really tiny spaces where you never have been before because the camera was just too big. And with the Venice 2 platform, we get one step further. So we said, okay, we have the original Venice sensor and we have now the new one. Why not using both sensors in the same platform? So you are able, depending on your production needs, to use either the new full-frame sensor or the already existing 6K sensor from the original Venice. And this is as easy as the Rialto setup done before. So even more flexibility and following the production needs, how you want to bring the vision to life and the emotion into every frame. So this is for us the pure evolution of the CineAlta, based on your feedback, based on feedback from all the different stakeholders. So to say, it's about the new full-frame sensor improving every single aspect of the picture quality, bringing this to the next level, supporting you with a small, compact body size, agile and flexible with internal recording in 16-bit, and go even further with the choice of 2 sensors in one body, capable with the Venice 2, and quite important for all the ACs, everyone who needs to set up cameras, it's the same user interface, same form factor, so you don't need to study and learn how to operate and set up the camera from the ground. So this is also quite important that everyone who has shot and used the Venice already with the Venice 2, it's like homecoming. But this is all the theory. We are here at Camerimage, and I think you all signed this off to watch amazing images and amazing content. So what we have done, so we asked 2 cinematographers in Europe and in the US to give Venice 2 a test ride, and they did. And to tell you all about this one, I would like to ask Klaus back on stage.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you. Yeah, we are here to watch beautiful images and beautiful content, and I can promise you there's stunning content that we will be able to show you. So the first production was done together with Rob Hardy. So Rob, please come here on stage. Please. Good. So, Rob, you are, please, BSc, ASC, known for Mission Impossible Fallout, Ex Machina, Annihilation, Devs, just to name a few of the productions that you have done. We are very happy to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, this production that we have been doing together, what was your intention? Why would turn it out like this?
Well, I mean, originally when you guys asked me, I thought, they were like, do you want to just do a camera test? And I just assumed it was going to be a camera test. And then it transpired that a location had been booked and a wonderful actress had been booked. So it became a sort of, more of a sort of rigorous test in a filmmaking environment, which I think was, for me, the most important part of the test, in a sense, because when you're on set, you have to be able to react quite quickly to all sorts of scenarios, including, whether it's something that's, whether you're making big shots or small shots, or you're just reacting to something you see. But then also in this case, what I wanted to do was try and sort of work in that process, but also create something quite elegant, but at the same time without any time to do it.
It was a tough 2 days.
Yeah, and I mean, I've used the Venice in its original form, the Venice 1, on a couple of films, and in fact, I've always sort of tended to towards the Sony. I mean, ever since Ex Machina, actually, with the F65. So for me, it was a sort of a no-brainer, really. I was like, yeah, okay, let's try it, and let's really just sort of push it.
Brilliant. So without further ado, let's have a look. Please, can we roll the content? Fine. Thank you. Thank you. That's amazing content. What do you think? How did the camera behave in this stressful 2 days?
It was a stressful 2 days. It was remarkable, actually. I mean, in a sense, obviously, because there's so much going on. For me, it was just one of those situations where I kind of knew instinctively that I didn't have to worry about that side of things. In fact, my main concerns were just sort of getting the huge amount of material that we needed to get in the time that we had in a location which is, you know, a very beautiful location, but also tricky to work in. And also, you know, enough material to cut together something that could resemble some sort of story. So all of those things are I think are the sort of key concerns that one would have as a filmmaker, cinematographer, or as a director, or whatever. So to sort of know that on the sort of camera side of things, I didn't have to. I could basically instinctively react to something that was in front of me. Yeah. So, for example, I think that the scene that's in there there's a window with a red blind on it. Originally, when we looked at that room, there was this idea that we would not have the blinds because they didn't feel like they were historically accurate. But I remember on the day just seeing them, just thinking, no, this is actually quite brilliant in a sense of from a visual perspective, because it offers up a whole range of issues, I suppose, that you could put in a frame. And it was literally a question of like, how far can we push this before it breaks, and especially with some of the sort of darker moments as well.
Especially the dark corridor that the lady went through. For me, when filming, it was pitch black, and so how did
I remember actually you were very worried about that.
And she's walking to the lit up room, and so this is quite a remarkable for you. Or?
Yeah. Again, actually, I remember walking the location maybe two or 3 weeks prior to that, and asking the lady who was in charge of for the owners to switch all the lights off, because it would have been nice to see the space, experience the space without any of this sort of artificial light. And that corridor was one of those particular moments where it's like, okay, this is going to be a challenge, but that's not going to stop us from doing it, you know. I do remember actually there was a brief moment where we did. I did need something. It's just after the moment she comes out of the bedroom, and she's against the wall. I did need something for her reaction, and the electrical department was sort of spread out all over the place, so I didn't have. And we had like 5 minutes to get the shot, 3 minutes to get the shot. I remember just asking my grip for his phone, so that we could just light her face with it, which he did. But actually, the directional light from the phone was too strong, so we had these very high ceilings, so we bounced it into the ceiling, and it was the sort of perfect underexposure that one wants, you know.
And how do you think the camera behaved in terms of skin tones, especially on low light conditions?
Yeah, I mean, I always feel that this is one of the reasons why I've always sort of enjoyed the Sony sensors, is because of its sort of natural affiliation with skin tones. I mean, when I first started out, I was shooting a lot of film. Mostly, I just came up shooting film, and there's that thing about looking through the finder of a camera, and you look through the glass, and you see what you see, and there's a connection that happens there with the material. And I remember, in fact, in the early days of the F65, just having that connection, which I hadn't really experienced up until that point in digital photography. And then, so in this new incarnation, again, it was just like, it was the same thing. I always try to photograph things the way I see them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the combination of lens and sensor, I guess.
Yeah. So the skin tone whatever that skin tone is
Yeah.
is a reaction to how you've lit the scene.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, right.
And then the camera should sort of really just be true to that.
By the way, what lenses did you use?
Well, actually, I mean, I had a whole selection of lenses because it was a test. We did have quite a lot of lenses. We had boxes and boxes of lenses. So we had a range of lenses from Panavision. I had some detuned T series. I had some expanded C series. I had some H series lenses. I also had some Cooke, the 1.8 times anamorphics, which I really enjoyed using actually. Mainly because they were covering the sensor in a sort of true fashion, which is sort of what I wanted to see. You know, obviously I used a combination of things. In one of the scenes, I used a 60mm T series, so I wanted to see the combination of like something that truly covered the sensor in anamorphic mode and something that also had to be expanded to wrap around the sensor, as it were.
Right.
It's an interesting combination.
Then turning to the long room later in the shot, there was a portrait. How did you lit this portrait or the whole scene?
Well, yeah, I mean, the scene was quite simply lit actually. At one end, we just closed all of the blinds, and I just had a combination of sort of natural daylight and one of my big tungsten sources that I tend to use, and at one end, and at the other end, a bunch of candles. So it was all. You know, we were grabbing some shots of the portraits just while we were waiting for the actor to turn around, and we ended up having to just hold maybe I think it was like 3 candles in the end to get the right kind of exposure for those quick grabs on those portraits.
And later in post, while grading it, how do you think it behaved? Also looking at the drone shots that we did, for example, did that work out for you?
Yeah, I mean the grade was actually, if anything, I wish I'd spent a little bit more time on the grade, mainly because not because I'm not displeased with the look of it, but because there is so far to go. Right. You know, you can. I just wanted to see how far I can push it. It's always something that I'm quite interested in. The grade is like you want to get it to breaking point before you pull back, so you know that you've got where you need to be. So I know Asa, who I work with regularly, is a regular collaborator. In fact, we're grading a film right now together. Is that he was very. I mean, you can believe it. You know, it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, okay, so we can just do whatever the F we want. So it's fine, you know. But like I say, I felt like I'd actually like to take the film back into the grading suite and just see what else there is in there, you know, to explore it even more.
Fine. Okay, I'm conscious of time, I'm afraid, that we have to move on. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks.
Yeah. Good. So the next content we shot was our American colleagues have done another production that was asking Rob McLachlan. So please, Rob McLachlan, can I ask you to come on stage? And Braden Haggerty, please. Braden? Thank you. So, ladies first. Braden, you are an underwater DOP and operator. You have worked on productions like Altered Carbon, Sirens, Peter Pan recently, I heard. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And Rob, you as CSC and AC member, you have worked on Game of Thrones, you have worked on Lovecraft Country, obviously Westworld, and anything else? There are so many productions, I cannot list them all, to be honest.
I shifted out of documentary work after 10 years of that in the 80s into dramatic film work, and since then I've done about several hundred episodes of TV and a couple of dozen feature films. You know, in the last few years, like you say, Lovecraft Country, Game of Thrones, and Ray Donovan were some of my favorites to work on.
Okay, so for you, the production that you two have done is completely different, and this is what we wanted to show. So what was the background?
Well, my first of all, thank you for letting me do this. It was an honor to be one of the first to use this camera. My first instinct was to do basically what I've been doing for the last 10 years, which is, using the camera to make some really sumptuous images. But I understood that that was what Rob was doing, and I'm sure, and I knew in the UK it was going to be gorgeous. And then I realized, why not put the camera to a torture test like I used to do with film stocks back when everybody, Kodak and Agfa and Fuji, were all coming out with new ones. I would take a camera out and just really put it through the works. And so I realized, I decided what to do would be to return to both my documentary, my professional roots as a documentary filmmaker, but also my personal roots, and take the camera up to an island that I more or less grew up on, which is inhabited by a lot of artists. It's an incredibly beautiful place, and I knew that no professional film crew had ever been allowed to film there before. So I wanted to see it under as many lighting conditions as we possibly could. We didn't give it any breaks. I wanted to put absolutely nothing between the cinematographers who are going to be looking at it and the camera itself. So we shot with Zeiss Supremes and Fuji Premista zooms with no filtration. We did no stop pulls on any shots. We didn't do any dynamic moves in the grade. No power windows, no anything. So this is exactly what this camera can do under all these conditions. And I have to say, my expectations were high because I've been using Venice for a couple of years, and I've made some of my favorite images ever with it. And I have to say, it far exceeded my expectations.
Perfect. So, good. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the content. So please roll the DCP. Wow. Thank you very much. This was a challenging production, I can imagine, in terms of traveling, in terms of weather condition, as I heard, right?
Yeah, we were a little worried about the weather. I mean, I was glad we shot in the desert so that I had some sunshine, because the weather in British Columbia at this time of year can be pretty dodgy, but we got everything we needed.
Definitely. In terms of light, did you use any artificial light?
There was absolutely nothing. I mean, there were so many times I wish I had a grip here with a little bounce or a little negative fill or a little something. No, I forced myself to use absolutely nothing at any point. No diffusion in front of the camera, no diffusion on anything. The scene in the house was lit just with the practical lights in the house. And I think it was saved by the fact that they had one ratty, tatty, falling apart rice paper light in their house, which helped a little bit. But I mean, even with nothing, it really impressed me.
So you used the 3200, obviously?
In the house, we were 3200. Underwater, I think we were 3200. Driving through the city, we were 3200. The shot where the car goes by the illuminated billboards, I think we were at an 8-stop, believe it or not. And I think what really impressed me the most was how clean the blacks are. I mean, they were good with the original Venice, but they're that much better now. And one of the reasons I presented this in 3.2 was, first of all, I thought it would be fun to just see that whole sensor, but also to hang on to more of the skies, because I found that that's really where this new camera really shines, is how the highlights roll off and how it handled all the nuance and detail in hot overcast skies, where normally I would expect to have no detail at all if you're exposing for a face in the foreground. But there's all kinds of texture and nuance in it that I was really thrilled to see.
Talking of this, especially underwater, Braden, when we are shooting underwater, you have the difficulties of light, to get enough light. So can you talk about how Venice 2 behaved?
Yes, I want to say one of the nice things about, well, the base, the higher ISO on the dual base is a really good thing, because when you're filming underwater, and I do mostly narrative production, and even in this, out in the ocean, that actually what we saw there is what you see when you dive underwater. And being able to capture that on that higher ISO sensor is really nice. Like, did you even do anything to that in the color?
No, we didn't have to do a thing to it. And, it was, I've done underwater photography as well. And, it was the worst possible day for underwater photography. It was heavily overcast. And very little light was penetrating the ocean, but it's still very pretty.
So what's really nice about that is I find more people are using the Venice. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we've gone from, since COVID, I've come back and it's been Venice, Venice, Venice. So that kind of thing is great, because when we're shooting underwater, most cinematographers really, there's usually not a motivation for a light coming from underwater. So this way, they don't like to take lights in the water, and when you have a sensor like this, you can do that.
And for you, underwater housing, the new form factor, what does it mean?
Yeah, well, with the underwater housings that I like to work with, which is the Hydroflex, but the Venice works in the Hydroflex. The Hydroflex is probably the only, seeing as this is just unveiled, the only housing in the world that will fit this camera right now, possibly. But on that note, so this worked well. We were able to, when we get the camera and had it in the water, was on the day we were shooting. We shot that underwater sequence, the underwater portion, it was 25 minutes from the dock to the site and back. Did you know that? I timed it. It was 25 minutes. But so we were able to balance the housing really quickly, so that was really good. But on that note as well, the woman who did the assisting up in Canada she works with me. And so when Rob said, we're going to have aerials, we're going to have drones, we're going to have underwater, we're going to have Steadicam and handheld and tripod work as well. In addition to being in California, we had rain. And I was really worried about her being able to manage all this, 2 cameras. But anyways, the camera worked. As like Rob was saying, you need the practical side of the camera as well as the sensor. We managed to work it on all of those systems.
Perfect.
Quickly, yeah.
And Rob, the scene in the desert when Braden is driving and you are panning from outside to the inside on her face, how do you think the camera behaved there?
I think it was stunning. I mean, in the past, with a hot background and someone in the car, you know, traditionally we'd need a bunch of fill coming through the front, and even very recently, doing the exact practical driving work in Chicago with the Venice, I found myself, I couldn't resist the urge to push some light in there. I realized now I probably didn't have to. I definitely don't have to now. And that with the ambient light, and that was, you know, I could have cheated a bit and brightened up. You know, Teslas have very bright dashboards. I could have used that as a light source or taken the screen out of the glass roof. I left it in so that it would feel as much like a practical driving situation. And I mean, I just love being able to get it so, you know, under completely natural conditions and have it still perform really nicely.
And skin tones, natural conditions?
I knew this, well, I knew from the, you know, working with the original Venice, on which, you know, on Lovecraft Country, for instance, we had some alabaster actors and a lot of very dark-skinned actors, and I could have them both in the same scene at the same time, and they all looked under the same lighting, and they looked great. So I was confident that this was going to as well, and it absolutely did.
Perfect. Good, and especially for me, the scene with Braden standing on the cliff and the drone around, that was for me stunning.
Yeah, that was done just before the sun came up. We've got a lot of really nice drone material there from, you know, from pre-dawn to dawn, and you know, but we had to be selective, and I included that last shot with the sun in it. In HDR, it's even more impressive in terms of how it renders that hot sun, and it doesn't just become a big hot blob. The way the highlights now roll off on this camera are really natural and gorgeous, and make me feel much more confident about, you know, doing shots like that and knowing they're going to look good.
So, looking at the future, what do you think that Venice 2 will enable you to do?
I know, especially having done this kind of a test with it, which I never did with the original Venice, it's going to give me the confidence to leave the studio with a lot less lights than I have in the past. And you know, like Rob, I try to make things feel as much as they, you know, look as much as they do to my eye, and feel, you know, you might call it enhanced naturalism, but as natural as possible.
Perfect. So any last comments? I'm sorry, I'm conscious of time. Any last comments? Fine? Okay, good. Then thank you very much for this. Thank you very much for creating that content for us, shooting with us, giving us your feedback that we can use to create even better products in the future and help you with creating your visions. And to finish this off, let me hand over to my colleague, Sebastian.
So, thank you so much for having you here. So as said, I think this was amazing, and has really shown both ends what the camera can do. One thing which we forgot to mention, because we cannot wait to give Venice 2 in your hands to see what amazing productions you will shoot with, availability. And Venice 2 is targeted to be available very shortly, February 2022. So take the time this week at Camerimage to get your hands on the Venice, talk to all of us around the world, US, Europe, Asia, through all the events coming, make the test, and then also this week, please join us for our seminars we are holding on Tuesday and on Thursday to get more experience from the DOPs who have shot on Venice. And we have, for everyone who's not at Camerimage, we have a live Q&A on Wednesday to answer all your questions. As said, thank you for being back at Camerimage. Thank you for joining our launch event for the Venice 2, the new member of the Venice family, and looking forward for all the productions you are shooting with. Stay safe. Have a great Camerimage this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.